When a qualifying rain event begins at your facility, that is, an event occurring during daylight and operational hours, gather your sampling kit and rain gear quickly. Having these items prepared and ready to go ahead of time will help guarantee a successful monitoring event. A qualifying rain event must generate at least 1/10 of an inch of rain. It should also be at least 72 hours since any previous rain event producing 1/10 of an inch or more. In order to determine where to collect samples during a qualifying runoff event, refer to your facility's site map, located within your Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, or SWP3. The SWP3 and site map should indicate the locations of the outfalls or the designated sampling locations. If your facility is new, you may need to make outdoor observations, possibly during a rain event, in order to determine where your facility's outfall locations are. Be certain these sampling or outfall locations are documented onto your facility's site map. Once precipitation increases to a point where runoff begins to flow through your defined outfall areas, document the flow start time on your visual monitoring form. You then have up to 30 minutes to collect and document each sample. If you do not collect the samples within the first 30 minutes of the flow start time, you will have to document why it was not possible to collect your samples within the required time frame. Use your visual monitoring form to document the information. At this example facility, there are 3 outfalls. Therefore, 3 sample collection containers must be clean, labeled, and ready to go when the rain event begins. Collection containers should be clear and colorless in order to properly observe the collected water. You are required to collect 1 sample for each outfall. The sample volume should be at least 500 milliliters, or about a quart jar's worth of runoff for each sample. If your facility has 2 or more outfalls that appear to discharge substantially identical effluents from similarly sized areas, you may be able to designate one outfall as a representative outfall for your facility. Consult with your inspector to determine if any of your outfalls qualify. Additional documentation will be required to support this determination. You must also rotate sampling between the representative outfalls each quarter. Analytical monitoring may be required in addition to your visual quarterly monitoring, depending on your business type and activities. If your facility is required to perform analytical monitoring, the analytical testing must be performed at each outfall, not just the representative ones. As you may know, analytical monitoring requires the use of a certified laboratory, specialized sample containers, and specific procedures. Contact a certified laboratory in advance for any analytical monitoring requirements. Depending on the location and type of outfall at your facility, you may need a sampling aid, such as a sampling cup on a pole or at the end of a rope, to assist in the collection of your quarterly visual monitoring samples. Clean dustpans, modified 2-liter bottles, or any other devices may assist when collecting samples from shallow sheet flow. Sampling aids help you collect samples more efficiently. Make sure you do not scoop the sample from the bottom of the sample flow, but allow the flow to naturally enter your sampling aid, preferably in the middle of the flow depth. The sampled water can then be poured into the labeled collection container for further examination. Remember to collect approximately a quart of water at each outfall and observe the conditions in and around each outfall area. Once you have collected your samples, be sure to document the time each sample is collected and complete the remainder of the visual monitoring form. The parameters to observe are as follows. Color. State what color the water is. If the water doesn't appear to have a color, mark it as colorless. Odor. Using caution, waft any potential odors toward you and document what you smell. Clarity. How clear is your sample? Can you read through the container? Indicate how clear the water is on your form. You may use the numbering system mentioned in the guideline. Floating solids. Describe anything floating on the surface of the water. Suspended solids. Describe anything suspended in the water. Foam. Document whether there is any foam in the sample and mention if there was any foam observed in the sampling area. Sheen. Document whether you observed a sheen in the sampling area or if there is a sheen in your collected sample. Other. Did you notice anything else that may be of concern not already documented associated with the sample or the sampling area? If so, document that here. Settled solids. Let the sample sit for at least 60 minutes undisturbed, then document what and how much has settled to the bottom of the container. Action taken. If you found any problems in your sample or the sampling area, be sure to track the pollutant back to the source of the problem and correct it immediately or as soon as practicable. A corrective action form should be completed for each incident. Complete these steps for each of your collected samples. Go over the form again to fill in any missing information. Be sure to sign and date the form and file it into your SWP3, keeping all your records for 3 years from the date your permit coverage ends or is terminated. Don't forget that you can sample ice and snowmelt runoff. The first day that the melting begins, you can collect samples within the first hour of runoff. Ask your inspector if you have any questions. We're here to help.